In the quiet village of Kora, there lived a man named Tunde. Tunde was a fisherman, and every day he would go to the river with his boat and nets, hoping to catch enough fish to feed his family and maybe sell a few at the market. But lately, the fish had become scarce, and Tunde was finding harder and harder to make it a living. He's worried about his wife Nia, and how they would survive if things didn't improve soon. One day, as Tunde sat by the river mending his nets, a wealthy stranger appeared. The man was tall and wore fine clothes, unlike anyone Tunde had ever seen before. The stranger introduced himself as Kobe and offered Tunde a seat beside him on the riverbank. Tunde hesitated but eventually agreed, curious about what the rich man might want from a poor fisherman like him. Kobe spoke with a smooth and friendly voice. He asked Tunde about his life, his struggles, and his dreams. Tunde, feeling a strange sense of trust toward the stranger, opened up about his worries. He told Kobe about the dwindling fish, his fear of not being able to take care of Nia, and his wish for a better life. Kobe listened intently, nodding as Tunde spoke. After a long pause, Kobe made an offer that took Tunde by surprise. "I can give you more money than you ever dreamed of," Kobe said, "enough to buy a finest house, the best clothes, and the food for years to come." Tunde's eyes widened in disbelief. "How?" he asked, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. Kobe leaned in closer and whispered, "All I ask in return is that you give me your wife Nia." Tunde's heart skipped a beat. The idea was unthinkable, but the promise of wealth was tempting. He knew how much Nia meant to him, but the thought of having enough money to solve all their problems clouded his judgment. Kobe could see the conflict in Tunde's eyes and smiled knowingly. "Think about it," Kobe said, rising to his feet. "I'll be back tomorrow for your answer." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Tunde alone with his thoughts. That night, Tunde couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, haunted by Kobe's offer. The money could change their lives forever, but the price was too high. How could he even consider giving up Nia, the woman he loved more than anything in the world? But then again, how could he continue to watch her suffer in poverty? The next day, Tunde went to the riverbank as usual, hoping to clear his mind, but the weight of the decision hung heavy on his heart. As promised, Kobe returned, his presence commanding and confident. Tunde stood up to greet him, but his legs felt weak beneath him. "So have you made your decision?" Kobe asked, his voice calm and persuasive. Tunde took a deep breath, his mind racing. "I can't do it," he stammered. "Nia is my wife. I love her." Kobe's smile faltered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "I understand your hesitation, Tunde," he said smoothly, "but think of the life you could have. Think of the future you could give her. With the money I'm offering you, you could give Nia a life of luxury. Isn't that worth considering?" Tunde's resolve began to waver. The stranger's words were like honey, sweet and tempting. He imagined Nia in fine clothes, living in a beautiful home, never worrying about money again. The idea was so alluring that it began to drown out the voice of reason in his head. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Tunde made his decision. With a heavy heart, he nodded. "I'll do it," he whispered, barely able to believe the words coming out of his mouth. Kobe's smile widened. "Excellent," he said, handing Tunde a bag filled with gold coins. "You've made a right choice, Tunde. You won't regret this." Tunde took the bag, his hands trembling. The weight of the gold was nothing compared to the guilt that suddenly washed over him. Kobe left without another word, leaving Tunde alone with his thoughts once again. The money was now his, but at what cost? That evening, Tunde returned home unable to meet Nia's eyes. She noticed his troubled expression but didn't press him, trusting that he would tell her when he was ready. But the days passed and Tunde remained distant, consumed by the secret he was keeping. Meanwhile, Nia's intuition began to stir. She could feel something was wrong, a shadow that seems to hang over their home. She noticed how Tunde would avoid her gaze and how he seemed lost in thoughts, as battling something deep inside him. Nia decided to follow her instincts and find out what was troubling her husband. One morning, while Tunde was out fishing, Nia searched their small home for answers. She eventually found the bags of gold coins hidden under their bed. Her heart pounded as she held the bag in her hands, the heavy truth sinking in. Where had this money come from, and why hadn't Tunde told her about it? When Tunde returned home that evening, he found Nia waiting for him, the bag of gold on the table between them. Her eyes were filled with heart and confusion. The Tunde felt his heart break at the sight. "Where did this come from?" Nia asked, her voice trembling. Tunde knew he couldn't keep the truth from her any longer. With tears in his eyes, he confessed everything: the stranger's offer, his decision, the guilt that had been eating away at him since that day. Nia listened in silence, her face pale as she tried to process what he was telling her. When Tunde finished, Nia stood up, her legs shaky, but her resolve strong. "We have to leave," she said firmly. "We can't stay here, not after what you've done." Tunde's heart sank. He had accepted anger, maybe even hatred, but instead Nia was filled with fear. "Where would we go?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Anywhere but here," Nia replied. "That man Kobe is dangerous. I can feel it. We need to get away before it's too late." Tunde knew Nia was right, but the thought of leaving their home and starting over was terrifying. Still, he knew he couldn't let anything happen to Nia. He would do whatever it took to protect her, even if it meant leaving behind everything they had ever known. That night, Tunde and Nia packed their few belongings and set out under the cover of darkness. They didn't know where they were going or what would happen next, but they knew they had to leave Kora behind. As they walked away from the village, hand in hand, Tunde felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe they could start over to find a new life together, far from the reach of Kobe and his dangerous offer. But the road ahead was not easy. Tunde and Nia faced many challenges as they traveled from the village to village, always looking over their shoulders, afraid that Kobe might find them. They struggled to find food and shelter, and the weight of Tunde's guilt only grew heavier with each passing day. One night, as they sat by a small fire in the remote village, Nia turned to the Tunde and said, "We can't keep running forever. We have to face what you did and find a way to make it right." Tunde looked into the Nia's eyes and saw the strength and determination that had always been there. He knew she was right. They couldn't keep running. They had to find a way to comfort Kobe and end this nightmare once and for all. The next day, they made their way back to Kora, the village they had fled from weeks earlier. The closer they got, the more Tunde's fear grew. but he knew they had no other choice. They had to comfort Kobe and return the gold, no matter the cost. When they arrived in Kora, they found village eerily quiet. It was as if the life had been drained from it. Tunde and Nia made their way to the riverbank, where the Tunde had first met Kobe. There, standing by water, was the wealthy stranger, his back turned to them. Tunde's heart pounded as he approached Kobe, the bag of gold clutched tightly in his hand. "We are here to return this," he said, his voice shaking. Kobe turned to face them, his smile cold and cruel. "You've made a grave mistake, Tunde," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "You can't simply undo what has been done." Tunde swallowed hard, his fear threatening to overwhelm him. "We are sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We just want to make things right." Kobe's smile widened, and Tunde felt a chill run down his spine. "There is only one way to make this right," Kobe said, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You must give me what you promised." Nia stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "You will not take me," she said, her voice strong and unwavering. "We may have made a mistake, but we will not let you destroy us." Kobe's smile faltered for the first time, and Tunde felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could fight this and come out on the other side. But Kobe was not so easily defeated. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the dark, swirling mist that surrounded them, blocking out the light. Tunde and Nia held on each other tightly, refusing to be separated by the darkness. As the mist grew thicker, Tunde heard the voice in his mind, a voice that was not his own. "You can end this," the voice said, "but it will come at a great cost." Tunde knew what he had to do. He had to sacrifice something dear to him to save Nia and himself from the curse Kobe had placed upon them. With a heavy heart, Tunde made his choice. The mist began to clear, and Tunde found himself alone on the riverbank. Nia was gone, and so was Kobe. The bag of gold lay at his feet, untouched. Tunde felt a deep emptiness in his heart, knowing that he had lost Nia, but also knowing that he had saved her from a fate worse than death. Tunde returned to the village of Kora, now a shell of its former self. He knew that he would never see Nia again, but he also knew that he had done what was necessary to protect her. He would live the rest of his days in solitude, a broken man, but one who had finally learned the true value of love and sacrifice. The moral of the story is that no amount of money is worth the loss of love and integrity. True wealth lies in bonds we share with those we love, and once those bonds are broken, they can never truly restored. Tunde's tragic tale serves as a reminder that the choice we make can have lasting consequences, and that the price of greed is often too high to pay. Kaya speaking, and I appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and drop comments. Goodbye, lovely souls. Keep smiling.